军、总冠军之争愈演愈烈。那么今天呢，周冠宇将从头位发车。我们在比赛之前，先来看看昨天的精彩集锦。
And here are the highlights from yesterday's race 11. It was Kush, Maini, the Indian driver, on pole position, who moved ahead to take the lead ahead of Patrick Pasma into turn number 1. He had set the fastest lap in race 10, hence his pole position, and he got away from the field. These two managed to pull out a gap in the early running ahead of the two championship contenders there, Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Zhou Guanyu, battling for third position, with Roy Nissany in the mix, and he was to feature significantly later on. You can see those front two early on did open up a bit of a gap. Unfortunately, we then had a safety car, and that's been a bit of a feature of some of the races here at the Dubai Autodrome so far this weekend. Roy Nissany battling through past Zhou Guanyu, but he wasn't able to hold that position for too long as the Chinese driver came right back here. And this was the contact that brought out the first safety car. The two female drivers, Irina Sordikova and Amna Al-Kubaisi, with Al-Kubaisi retiring here. So the safety car was out, the gap was all closed up from those front two, with Roy Nissany in third position. And then at the restart, look at Patrick Pasma in second place here. He thought about taking a look, putting pressure on Kush Maini. And there was plenty of action in the midfield as well. Now, look at Pasma. He takes a look around the outside, then goes on the inside and makes it stick with an absolutely sensational move to take the race lead. And just moments later, look at this. Kush Maini just taken out from the back there by Roy Nissany. Both of them out of the race, and they spin. Some furious reactions there after the end of that little incident. So that brought out another safety car, and that's how the race finished. Patrick Pasma getting his first win of the season from Zhou Guanyu, his fourth consecutive second place finish, and the championship leader Pierre-Louis Chauvet. That was your 1, 2, 3, with Roman Stanek in fourth, Reese Ushijima and Alex Connor, the 16-year-old driver, in sixth position.
Yes, it's me, and no, it's not cricket. But it's the same energy. It's not between the runs, but the laps. It's not between two teams, but many to come. It's not just between the players, but also their machines. Sweat, not in the jerseys, but in their gears. It's about the race this time. Show up to cheer for Amchi Mumbai.
Mumbai Falcons at the Asian F3 Championship, UAE.
It's time for the third and final race of round 4 of the 2021 F3 Asian Championship, and it is brought to you here on the Mumbai Falcons YouTube channel. A fantastic opportunity to go racing.
In a few moments' time, you will start on pole position. Surely it's all-out attack.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, that's obviously race 1. He had a mega jump and got me in the start, so make sure that doesn't happen in the next race coming up. So all in for the start, and I'm sure that as soon as I'm in the lead for turn 1, no one will be overtaking me.
Not only Pierre-Louis Chauvet out front, but also Jehan, a fellow Formula 2 driver, right in contention for the championship.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this championship is being us three the whole way. Everybody is quick here and is competitive, and yeah, I'm trying to do everything to stay ahead of these two.
And finally, it's been a big week for you. Recently announced signing up with Uni Virtuosi and FIA Formula 2, Chinese New Year. Surely that's not a distraction. You're focusing on the championship.
No, for sure not. You know, I mean, the race weekend, I'm focused on doing my job to the best, and yeah, it's been a good week for me. You know, to announce that racing Formula 2 is the same team, in the same time having Chinese New Year here. Not the best place I would like to celebrate, but I will try to do my best to have a good result.
Guan Yu Zhou, the final race of the weekend in just a moment, starting on pole position. Best of luck.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So Joe starts from pole. Down in 7th position is Turkish driver Chamberlain Bassey, who has one of the largest followings of this championship due to his history as an esports driver and has a race win in the F1 Esports Series. He's finished 7th and 8th so far this weekend. Starts on the grid from 7th today. And he has a very interesting background. We were able to catch up with him earlier in the championship to talk about his history and how he has successfully managed to make the jump from simulator to car.
Was a Formula One world champion before his first ever professional car race. Chamberlain Bassey from Istanbul won the F1 Esports title here in Abu Dhabi 4 years ago.
I'm Chamberlain Bassey from Turkey, racing in the Formula 3 Asian Championship with Black Hearts Racing.
And since has converted that success into a career as a real-life driver. We spoke to Cham, one of the more fascinating drivers competing in the Asian Formula 3 Championship.
Oh yes, I mean I always wanted to. I tried some testing before, but I never had the money or budget, let's say, back in those days in 2016 or 2017. So that's when I switched to esports. But then, I mean, switching to esports, I hoped to be back in racing again, in real life motorsports. But that was my hope, it was my goal, but it's something I believed in, but also it was a big surprise when it actually happened. Yeah, I mean, I've done 2 races in GT4 in 2019. It was like a shootout. We did the first race and we were 5th in the race. And in the second race, we actually got the first podium of the team by finishing 2nd. So it went pretty well. So the next year they said I could race with them for the whole season, which then we finished with 2 wins and a lot of podiums. I think we were 2nd in the championship in GT4 European Series. So it was definitely great. I'm looking forward to race there again. Yeah, I think in terms of expectations, I never expected to be in the top 10 in all the races. If you tell me a couple of weeks ago that you would like get 6 out of 6 races in your first races in F3 Asian Championship against a grid like this, I would take it any day. So I'm pretty happy. I think we just need to build up from here. Because we didn't expect to be this high. So now that we're high, of course we're aiming for higher. So we just want to improve every race in terms of race pace, quality pace. So that's what we're trying to do. And if we can stay in top 10, get into top 5 or top 3, that's our own goal. I think any championship is important in esports because if you can somehow show you're talented on the simulator world, you have the chance to show that in the real world. I was lucky there, I was on the right place at the right time, so I think they should seek for that chance as well. I know that racing esports scene is getting bigger and bigger in China. I hope we see more Chinese players in the F1 esports scene as well. So I think when that gets more traction, it gets bigger, I think it will give them a bigger chance to go to real racing. So I say they should never give up and go for it.
Definitely one of the more exciting talents within the Asian Formula 3 grid, Chamberlain Bassey. Here is Jehan Daruvala, who is going to be starting from 9th position on the grid for this one. Not the best qualifying session in Q2 on Friday, so he's obviously got to try and make up some ground from P9 on the grid, the inside of row 5. It's a difficult weekend at the office for the Mumbai Falcons team, to be fair. They've not had the best fortunes coming into round 4. And Jehan Daruvala managed to get a reasonable finish in the first race of the weekend to get a 5th position finish despite picking up damage in the opening lap. still managed to carry the car into the top 5. Then, of course, yesterday, Kush Maini managed to get himself a fabulous pole position from race 1 after some mechanical problems that dropped him down the order, but he went and banged in the fastest lap of the race, which he did again, incidentally, in the race yesterday. But an incident with Roy Nizani put he and the Israeli out of the race. So, unfortunately, Kush Maini showing plenty of speed and skill this weekend, but no results to show for it, which is an absolute devastation for him. And now the team really need a morale booster in this third race, because they've obviously been race winners 3 times over the course of the year. 2 wins at Abu Dhabi in the second round, and then a third win in race 3 at round 3. So the team knows how to win. They know how to put things up to the front end of the field. They've just had some frustrations here at the Dubai Autodrome team, but it's a very talented bunch of mechanics and engineers who have put an awful lot of hard work, blood, toil, tears and sweat into this operation. And it is going to be an absolutely fascinating battle for all of the competitors as the racers go through. So we're going to have an absolutely sensational battle for all of the competitors out on the circuit. There is Jehan, 3 times a race winner, currently 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, 40 points back from Pierre-Louis Chauvet and 21 points, I should say, back from Zhou Guanyu, the Chinese driver. For anybody wanting to know why I'm saying his name backwards, it's not backwards, it's how it is said in China. You always say the family name, the given name first. So an absolutely fantastic battle, and we will have another great race. Any comments and questions that you have watching along on the Mumbai Falcons YouTube stream, do please chat away. We are more than happy to be social as we go through this third and final race of the weekend before we head to the season finale at Yas Marina next weekend. The Dubai Autodrome really has thrown up an interesting weekend, though. We had a sizzling race yesterday, despite the fact that we had 2 safety car periods, one of which ended the race in yesterday's encounter. Well, we're certainly getting to the business end of the F3 Asian Championship now, where the drivers at the front end are thinking about super license points, 18 of which are available if you win the Asian Formula 3 Championship. So there's a lot of focus on the competitors in the midfield as they try and put in some decent performances. But the man from the front row of the starting grid will be hoping for a decent race in this one, and that is the Japanese driver and the young Red Bull star, Ayumu Uwasa, who is going to be on the front row of the grid alongside Zhou Guanyu. Pierre-Louis Chauvet, 3rd position on the grid with Patrick Pasma, the man who won yesterday's second race. And it is fantastic to see how the competitors are going to go since their first victories. Obviously, when Chauvet won his first race, it opened the floodgates and he became a winning machine, and he's barely stopped. Patrick Pasma will go off P4. What a fantastic skyline. Even in slightly muggy conditions this morning, the city of Dubai really is the city that never sleeps and puts on a sensational sporting endeavour here at the Dubai Autodrome circuit. One of the few race circuits in the world that I have not only walked around but actually driven around. It really is a sensational facility and one of the most world-class racetracks in the world. It doesn't always put on the most sensational of races, and that's often because drivers will get a little bit too eager and cause safety car incidents. But of course the safety team here is incredibly efficient. So as long as the drivers keep it nice and clean. We even had some very strange moments during the Asian Le Mans series yesterday. There was a clash between the race leaders in the second hour, and that was rather unexpected. So we're going to have a very interesting race ahead of us. Now, an interesting question from... an interesting point actually made, from Taran Ditmova. How many more races does Pierre-Louis Chauvet need to close the championship? That is a good one, because at the moment he has a 19-point advantage over the Chinese driver Zhou Guanyu, but there are still 100 points available, so the championship is definitely not over yet. And obviously with 25 points available for the race win, you've got 4 races essentially left in the championship, so that's 100 points. So it's essentially anybody in the top 3 can still get the title won. Pierre-Louis Chauvet has 196, Zhou Guanyu has 177, and Jehan Daruvala has 156. So anybody in that top 3 can still very easily win the championship. There are 100 points available and 40 between the top 3 drivers, 19 between first and second. So as long as Zhou Guanyu keeps putting in the pressure, if Chauvet has 1 DNF, then the championship race is blown wide open. And we've basically had essentially a DNF each from the likes of Zhou and Daruvala now. Because Guan Yu Zhou, if you remember, failed to finish the third race of the weekend in the opener at Dubai. And Jehan Daruvala didn't retire at any point this season, but he had a 12th place finish courtesy of a problem on the start line yesterday and didn't have the time to make it up. I actually went to the Mumbai Falcons pit garage yesterday after race 2 and watched Jehan's onboard under green flag conditions, and it's a real shame that the safety car came out again, because he was genuinely dicing his way through the field like wildfire under green flag conditions. He would have easily climbed into the points, probably in and around 6th or 7th place. He had the time to get into the top 5 if we had not had another safety car period. So it could have been very interesting indeed to see where Jehan Daruvala would have ended up. And they've definitely got the speed. They just haven't had the performance. Now, that's interesting. That's one of the black arts mechanics, I think, that has been essentially left on the starting grid very late indeed. And within the 15 seconds board going up. So there's definitely been a bit of an issue there. I wonder if that's for Chamberlain Bassey, who was 7th on the starting grid. That could be a problem if that has been... If he's been left on the grid too late, we'll have to double check on that one. But anyway, the formation lap gets underway. Green flags fly. And so the cars are going around, putting heat into the tyres and brakes to get them to the optimum performance. So we will see how things are going to go. Let's look at the grid. It's Zhou Guanyu and Ayumu Uwasa on the front row of the starting grid for China and Japan. Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Patrick Pasma, the Pinnacle and the Evans on row 2. Then it is Roberto Faria of Brazil and David Vidalis of Spain, the new boy in at Abu Dhabi Racing by Prema. Chamberlain Bassey and Kush Maini are there on the 4th row of the grid. Then it is Jehan Daruvala and Roy Nizani who line up on the 5th row of the grid. Row 6 is Rhys Ushijima and Roman Stanek, the two high-tech teammates. Then in 13th on the grid is Rafael Villagomez and Alexandre Bardinon, who are there on row 7. Then it is Alex Connor, the British driver, alongside the Spaniard Lorenzo Flusha. And then on row 9 of the grid, it is Alessio De Leda alongside Russia's Irina Sidorkova for the Evans GP team. Then it is Khaled Al-Kubaisi alongside Nicola Marinangeli. And at the back of the grid, after a problem in second qualifying, it is Amna Al-Kubaisi who lines up in the grid. So 21 cars in position. And I think we're going to have a very interesting third race here. And let's not forget that on that front row of the starting grid, we have Ayumu Uwasa, the Japanese young gun for Red Bull. He was the French Formula 4 champion last year. And since he stepped into Asian F3, he has been a bit of a revelation. He's been banging in some great results all through the year. Up until yesterday, up until Friday, I should say, his best result of the season had been a 4th place. He finally got his first podium in race 1 on Friday. But now he's got a chance to go for a victory, and this is the best chance that the Japanese driver has ever had in Asian Formula 3 to do so. He could have had a decent result yesterday if he hadn't tangled in the early stages with Brazil's Roberto Faria. That was both drivers' first retirement of the year as well, ironically, so not a great state of affairs for them. We had several retirements in yesterday's race, actually, not just Ayumu Uwasa and Roberto Faria. We also obviously had Amna Al-Kubaisi, her car apparently making contact with Irina Sidorkova, the Russian. And Irina was able to keep going and eventually finish the race in 14th, but Amna was out on the spot with a broken front left wheel. And Kush Maini, of course, got into his incident with Roy Nizani, and the two drivers absolutely irate with each other afterwards. I did manage to get a chance to speak to Kush after the race. He seemed a little bit downbeat after it all. And he said, it's a wasted opportunity, but I've proven what I can do. I've shown my speed. I was fastest in both of the races. So I'm now at a point where I'm ready to win, is what he told me. I'm not sure he'll get the best chance of doing it in race 3, but stranger things have happened in the world of Asian Formula 3. All sorts of great races over the years, and let's hope that this one is going to be another firecracker. So the competitors are going to make their way now around the final corner. And it will be Amna Al-Kubaisi that will line up at the back of the grid. Once she is in her grid slot, we will go racing here at Dubai Autodrome. It's Guan Yu Zhou, the Chinese driver at the front. A great weekend for Chinese New Year. Can he give them a victory here at Dubai as Amna Al-Kubaisi places her car at the back of the grid? Get ready, ladies and gentlemen, for race 3 here at the Asian Formula 3 Championship 2021, round 4 from Dubai Autodrome. It's Zhou on the right-hand side of the screen. Lights out. Let's race. And he's barely got away. Zhou's not started, nor has Iwasa. Zhou and Iwasa barely get away. Now they are moving, but the front row is completely eclipsed by the rest of the field. It's game on. And now Chauvet has hit the front in fantastic style. Here comes Pasma to try and launch up the inside of David Vidalis. Vidalis holds it and keeps second position as round the outside comes Roberto Faria, and that's one of the Mumbai Falcons cars going wide and rejoining. I think it's Jehan Daruvala. So a bit of an issue there on the first lap, but some amazing moves in the field. But a big drama for Zhou, and that could blow the championship for the Chinese driver, because Chauvet is the man who now leads the way. All the Frenchman has to do is extend that gap. He can't win the championship today. He's got to wait until Yas Marina, but the lead he could build up with a win compared to Zhou down and out of the points could be astronomical. So it is Zhou that is down the order. He has got going. I should point that out. He is racing. So Guan Yu Zhou is there in the field, as is Ayumu Iwasa. But unbelievable that the two front row men barely managed to get their cars off the grid at all. And diving up the inside, that looks like Kush Maini making his move on the inside of Chamberlain Bassey to get the overtaking move. And that's a nice dive on the inside there from Rafael Villa-Gomez as he goes wheel to wheel with Alex Connor in the Evans GP car. So a great duel between those two. Bolak Bassey is holding his own in front of both of the Mumbai Falcons cars as Kush Maini decides to dive up the inside of the Turk, and they are side by side. They almost rub wheels. Good move from Kush Maini if he can hold it up, and he has done so. Great overtake from Kush Maini. The Mumbai Falcons have come to play, and they are charging forward. Daruvala is trying to get his move on Bolak Bassey. Bolak Bassey dives for the inside line on Maini. Maini drifts a little bit wide, but shuts the door firmly so that Bolak Bassey cannot get back through. Great racecraft from the two Indian drivers on the first lap. They managed to get themselves firmly up the order, and they are now in 6th and 8th, I do believe. And the high-tech trio are chasing them down. Where's Zhou? There he is. He's on the inside now of the 8 of Rafael Villa-Gomez, and Ayumu Iwasa is in that mix of drivers as well. So it's Chauvet that leads. Vidalis, Pasma, Faria, Maini, Bolak Bassey, Daruvala, Nizani, Ushijima, and Stanek in the top 10. So Zhou is down to 15th, Iwasa is down to 18th, and all of the cars are still running. But what a dramatic first lap. But it's all great news for Pierre-Louis Chauvet. He is now leading and searching for race win number 6. The Frenchman could not have asked for a better start. So an absolutely sensational run from Kush Maini on the opening lap. He is now there in 5th position in the Mumbai Falcons car and chasing after Roberto Faria. And to answer the question of Tejas Shah, yes, Kush Maini is the brother of Arjun Maini, who is racing in Asian Le Mans later today. So there at the back of the field is Khaled Al-Kubaisi, who's not had the best opening lap, but hopefully he'll be able to get himself back at the order. Oh, and a spin in the background and into the barriers. That's a big one. A big shot in the background. I think that's Amner Al-Kubaisi. It just looked as though the car drifted onto the curbs, and that's going to be a safety car. No question at all. A big shot there for Amner Al-Kubaisi. So for the likes of Vidalis, Pasma and Faria, this is great news. This isn't great news for the race leader, Pierre-Louis Chauvet, who thought he had it all his own way up front. But now he's got a safety car to deal with. So a very difficult situation now, as Pierre-Louis Chauvet will almost certainly have to get himself together all over again. There are the yellow flags around the circuit, and there's the safety car board coming out. So there we are. We are under safety car conditions after a big shunt for Amner Al-Kubaisi. She's out of the car, thank goodness. She did have some problems with her hand yesterday after the incident, so that's probably the reason why. I wouldn't jump to conclusions and assess that Amner's not dealing with the car particularly well. That's unfair and certainly an unsolicited kind of comment. But Amner did have problems with her wrist as a result of the incident with Irina Sidikova yesterday. She was updating us all on Instagram yesterday that her wrist got a little bit twisted in the incident. So she's probably still feeling a little bit of discomfort. And you cannot underrate just how heavy these cars are to drive in Formula 3. And if they get even just a little bit twitchy, which they will do if you get an inch or not even an inch wrong in terms of lining up the car on the curbs, these cars can snap away. You've got to remember, they don't have traction control. They don't have any electronic aids. So you've just got to nail it. And unfortunately, all it takes is one little flick of the wheel, the car rubs onto the curb the wrong way and it can snap away from you. And if she's tried to wrestle with it, but the wrist has just had a little bit of discomfort there, she would not necessarily have been able to control the car. Now let's have a look at the start again and watch Johan Iwasa go nowhere, absolutely nowhere. So the field has to take avoiding action for the leading two cars as they drift down to the back of the field. Absolute disaster for them. Now, watch Pasma, because he's got a threat on the inside of Vidalis, but Vidalis just sticks to his guns on the middle of the circuit and keeps it there. Now, one of the Mumbai Falcons drifts wide. That looks like Jehan Daruvala, actually, as Maini. Look at the start Kush Maini got. Brilliant getaway from him. So that was an absolute flyer from Kush Maini. From 8th on the grid, he managed to launch up to 5th place, dodging the mayhem. And so you can see there that the recovery truck is going to need to get to Amna Al-Qubaisi's car. So I have a feeling that she's going to be doing some physiotherapy work on that wrist that she damaged in yesterday's race. Because obviously they've tried to see if she'll be okay for the start, and it would be very, very easy to criticise her. But unfortunately, it's not an easy situation, and let's be fair, these cars are not easy to drive. Nobody can jump straight in and be on the pace. And Amna Al-Qubaisi is a very talented racing driver for anybody who does want to belittle her. She is incredibly skillful. She won last year's Dubai O-Plate in the gearbox category, which is one of the toughest forms of karting in the world, which therefore makes it one of the toughest forms of racing in the world as far as I'm concerned. Gearbox karting really does separate the real racers from the playmates. And it's worth pointing out that a Gearbox world champion in karting really does make you a superstar driver. Who's a karting world champion from Gearbox in the last 8 years? Somebody called Max Verstappen. Nobody doubts his skill and ability. If you win a championship in Gearbox karting, you are one of the best, and Amna Al-Qubaisi can consider herself as one of those. She's just had a very unfortunate week with the car. And she has always said this is not going to be a year when she's going to win the title. She's going to learn. Look, the car just snaps away. There's nothing you can do when it gets loose. And I wouldn't say that's a massive mistake from her. It's just the tiniest little twitch offline. That's all it takes. And the wind is very strong here as well at Dubai Autodrome. A lot of people forget that. But I've been here and around the circuit the last couple of weeks, even prior to the Asian Formula 3 Championship. At this time of the year, the wind does get high. And you've got to remember that with the strong gusts of wind, the car can just snap away without warning. So that is another reason she could well have been chucked into the wall. So a very, very difficult moment for Amna, and hopefully she's going to be okay and ready for the next round of the championship. So for those who are debating on the stream whether Jehan Daruvala is likely to get a penalty, I don't think he would, because yes, he did go wide at the first corner, but what he did do is that he gave back the positions that he had gained. So I don't think that's going to result in a penalty. You would only get a penalty at that first corner if you ran off the circuit and then gained positions as a result of doing so. But Jehan Daruvala did not. So I think he's going to be all right. I wouldn't have suspected a penalty is coming, and I'm certainly not having anything be showing up on the timing screen as an investigation. Now, normally, if there was a debate about a penalty for something on the start, then it would come up on my timing screen. So clearly, they've had a look at the incident. They've looked at where Jehan Daruvala went wide, and they've said, nope, it's okay. Nothing illegal about that. He's given the places back, so not a problem. So I think he should be okay, but obviously that is just conjecture. That's just me assessing the situation on face value. I'm not a race steward, and certainly I'm never going to be qualified or intelligent enough to become one. So you're going to have to take my word that I'm only seeing it from my perspective. So this is going to be a really exceptional battle when we get going again, because we've got a very motivated David Vidalis. For those who are thinking, who is David Vidalis and what has he done to get himself into second position in an Asian Formula 3 race? Well, he's had an incredible karting career. He was the national Spanish champion a few years back and came into the world of FIA karting with the Tony Kart factory team. So he's got plenty of skill and experience. He was almost champion of the world in 2018, were it not for a couple of poor heats where things went away from him at Genk in Belgium. He probably would have been the champion of the world. He was the runner-up in the end behind Patrick Hayek of the Czech Republic. But David Vidalis is definitely one to watch. He is an incredibly skillful young racer and could be the next Spanish superstar in the same mould and guise of Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz Jr. So he is there in second place ahead of Patrick Pasma with every chance of moving up past Chauvet if he gets a good restart. Safety car in this lap. So we are going to get some great racing from the drivers at the front end of the field. And I hope that is the last time we're going to see the safety car period this weekend. So this is going to be an absolute thriller from the get-go. And look, Chauvet is holding them up big time. Can Vidalis get him on the restart? Now, Vidalis is one to watch here because in restarts in karting, he was always one of the best at it. Whether he was in first, second or third, he was always good at anticipating another driver's get-go. And look, he's intimidating Chauvet on the start already. Look, he knows that Chauvet's going to go for it here, and he's already matched him. This is what Vidalis is so good at, and it's great. He's already pounced on Chauvet's opportunity. Chauvet thought he had Vidalis nailed there, but Vidalis has absolutely timed it to perfection off the restart, so we could get a real scrap between these two now. Vidalis drifts a little bit wide out of the final turn, but he has got slipstream. He needs to use this lap to build up to Chauvet, but he has got a chance. So Chauvet, Vidalis, Pasma, Faria, Maini, Bassey, Daruvala, Nizani, Ushijima and Stanek in the top 10. Then Bardinon, Deleda, Connor, Zhou, Via Gomez, Madanangeli, and that's a big dive up the inside. That's the 11 coming past. That's Stanek getting past the 25 of Alexandra Bardinon. So Bardinon was trying to get through into 10th position. No chance, says Roman Stanek. I'm going to keep this point. Thank you very much. A sensational battle. So this is going to be an absolute thriller for the competitors as Chauvet leads Vidalis, Pasma, Faria and Maini. Now an interesting question has come through from Tejas Shah. Would Jehan Daruvala get enough super license points to race in Formula 1 if he finishes third in the championship? Well, as I understand it, he would not quite score enough points to race in Formula 1, but he would certainly score enough super license points to take part in Friday free practice sessions, which is obviously the next key step for him to get into a Formula 1 car. So if he does finish third in the championship, which he is very likely to do, especially if he keeps banging in some good points finishes, keep an eye on Jehan Daruvala this year because he might well get the chance to step into the AlphaTauri on a Friday free practice session. And Red Bull are right behind him. They want to get another Indian star into Formula 1. He is the best candidate to do so, and he's already shown incredible skill and dexterity in the car. Now, hang on a minute. We've got a bit of a hold-up and a few cars are missing. Now, that's interesting. The 14 has come through. That is Roy Nizani. We seem to have lost Bassey and Daruvala. What's happened to Bassey and Daruvala? They seem to have dropped back. Up the inside, that is Risa Shijima taking on his teammate Roman Stanek. So they've gone through. We seem to have lost Bassey and Daruvala. They have not come through. Oh, that's why. Oh dear. That is the first retirement of the season for Jehan Daruvala. And it's not Bassey that's in there. It's actually Bardinon. But Bassey, I do believe, has stopped out on the circuit as well. Oh, no, sorry. He has continued after a spin. But that is pretty much it. Game over for Jehan Daruvala. That's unfortunate. And that's a red flag, in fact. Red flag is being waved out on the circuit. So that is unfortunate. I can't believe that. That must have been a pretty nasty incident because we've got two cars stalled on the circuit into each other. It's going to come up on the screen any second now. But on my timing monitor, yeah, you can see it in the background. Red flag, red flag. That's the first time this year that we've had a race actually stopped. So, well, that means that we're going to have a 16.5-minute sprint race later. Incident involving car 19 and 25. That's Jehan Daruvala and Alexandra Bardinon under investigation. Now, this is interesting because, look, the race has been stopped at 16 minutes 33. So we should have a sprint race later on in terms of just over half distance. So the race is going to be stopped. I'm fairly sure the cars will be able to restart in their current positions, but they will be brought back to the starting line. Is that a puncture for Roberto Faria? I think I saw problems with the rear tyre for Roberto Faria. Now, again, I could well be seeing things. Yeah, I think I was seeing things there, to be honest. I do apologise. I didn't want to alert Brazilian fans and give them a heart attack or a panic. But we've got... now, that's interesting. We've got two cars there stationary, Daruvala and Bardinon. I can't see Chembolik Bassey's car or Alessio Deleda's anywhere. So it looks like 2 or 3 cars have been involved in this one. Now, this is a big difficulty. people calling for the replay. I'm not entirely sure if we've got one or not. The cameras could well have been focusing on the wrong part of the circuit at the wrong time. But obviously a red flag means that there is a situation where the cars obviously have to be brought back to the starting line, which they will do. Now the timer appears to have continued to tick down. Now that is unusual. Not quite sure how that has happened, because the timer stopped at 16:33. The cars are being brought into the pit lane, not onto the start line. Now, of course, we've got to remember that we've got a 4-hour Asian Le Mans Series race still to come, so we don't know what's going to happen in terms of the... we don't actually know what's going to happen in terms of the race restarting, but as soon as we find something out, we will, of course, give you the information. We certainly haven't got a red flag and a checkered flag, because the red flag came out before half distance. What's going to happen is the cars are going to come down to the pit lane and they will wait at the pit lane exit, and then they will be sent back out onto the circuit. I have a feeling we could have a safety car restart, but there is no point in speculating as to what has happened. We're obviously under a red flag because of an incident involving Jehan Daruvala and Alexandre Bardinot. I can tell you that both Chamberlain, Bassey and Alessio Deleda have made it back to the pits, so they are in pit road. So that is good news, at least. I think there was an incident initially between Bassey and Daruvala, and maybe Bardinot had nowhere to go. So that's possibly the reason why we have gone to a red flag. We can obviously see the incidents down there. Now, Jehan Daruvala is out of the car. That's good news. So that is obviously very positive news. If he's not in the car, that means that he is okay, because he would not have been able to extricate himself from the car so quickly if he had any major difficulties or concerns. So that is good news. That is something that we can focus in on, is that Jehan Daruvala is out of the car. So that's positive. But obviously we're under red flag, and I think that's because the cars are basically very badly damaged in a very tricky part of the course. So they had no alternative, really, but to ensure that they kept themselves out of harm's way. And it's a very interesting question from Devyansh Joshi. Why is the timer not stopped? I've already asked that one. I'm not entirely sure why the timer hasn't stopped, because normally under these situations, the red flag comes out and the timer stops counting. Now, I'm not entirely sure why the timer is still ticking down, because under a red flag conditions... Now, there is Kush Maini in the pits. Now, he's had a fantastic race today so far. This is a much better job from Kush Maini. I think he's really built from the confidence of leading yesterday. Yes, he didn't win the race, and yes, he didn't finish the race, but he knows, from his perspective, he knows that that was not of his doing. So he's been able to show true pace in this third race, full of confidence. So this is a good opportunity for Kush Maini. So we're going to see an absolutely fascinating sprint race, hopefully, when we go racing again. But obviously we're in a situation where we've got to try and figure out how things are going. Now, here's an interesting question from Vatsal Singh. Why are there so many starting errors from the drivers? We saw a few of them over the course of yesterday. Well, we saw one from Jehan Daruvala yesterday, and we've seen one from Guan Yu Zhou and from Ayumu Iwasa. It's worth pointing out that these cars are actually very difficult to get off the line. There is a strict methodology of doing it. The clutch is very temperamental here, and if there is a slight issue with the electronic sensor, it can trick the engine into thinking that it's in anti-stall mode. So it is a very difficult car to get off the line if anything goes slightly awry. And you've got to remember that these guys are humans. You know, they do make mistakes, and racing drivers are not flawless. They are not perfect. They are imperfect. So the clutch isn't easy to master, as Vahan Amaria points out. For those who are more mechanically and engineering minded than I am, they will know obviously how difficult it is to get a Formula 3 car off the line. But it is something that I've known for quite a long time already about these cars, that you can't just jump into them and be consistent and straight away up at the front end. It's not possible. So we do have to continue to hope that these guys are still going to get a good run off the line. There's Moy Tungakar on the right, just chatting away to Kush Maini. Moy Tungakar, team principal at the Mumbai Falcons Racing Team, along with joint seat holders at X1, Arman Ibrahim and Aditya Patel, who sadly is not commentating this weekend. He's working hard within the team. He wants to obviously make sure they've got the best possible chance of getting a decent result in the title fight. Now, Akash Verma asks, where do you see Mumbai Falcons in the Constructors' Championship this season? I think they've still got a good stranglehold on second place in the points. They have got a good opportunity because of the consistency, but Pinnacle Motorsport is catching them. So it's worth pointing that out, and it could well be that Pinnacle Motorsport start to overtake them again. But Mumbai Falcons need a decent, solid effort of Yas Marina. And let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, that the last time we raced at Yas Marina, last time out, the fastest driver over one lap all weekend was Jehan Daruvala. He got 3 races, 1 out of the 6 that were held. So there is a good chance of the Mumbai Falcons team grabbing the second place in the Constructors' title. I think the Abu Dhabi Racing by Prema teams still have a chance of it. You've got to remember that ahead of each event, the teams nominate 2 drivers that accumulate teams' points. So based on how things are currently going, and obviously a difficult start to the race from Guan Yu Zhou, there's a good chance that if Kush Maini continues to get a good run here in 5th place, he could take some good points out of the Abu Dhabi Racing by Prema team. Pinnacle Motorsport could even take the lead of the Teams Championship next time out. So it is a frenetic 4-horse race for the Teams Championship between the Abu Dhabi Racing by Prema squad, Mumbai Falcons, Pinnacle Motorsport and Evans GP. They are all doing a fantastic job. Now, what's the mechanic doing there with the airbox? I think he's just trying to extricate some debris from the side pod. So obviously there's been a couple of incidents out on the circuit. If he's actually managed to catch some sand or something in the side pod, it's worth trying to get that out as soon as humanly possible. A fascinating insight into what goes on behind the scenes under a red flag. You don't get to get this close this often. So great work from the crew, getting us very close into the action there. Kush Maini still with a decent chance of a top 5 finish. Could even get a podium if things continue on the restart. We've obviously got to try and figure out how much longer we will have to go racing. Now, when the red flag came out, we had about 16.5 minutes of racing left. Now, hopefully the clock is going to be reset and we should be able to get 16.5 minutes worth of racing in again. So the mechanics are checking something on Kush Maini's right-hand side of the car in the side pod. Hopefully that's not a difficult issue. Now, Ben Morrison asks, would a standing start be possible, or is it likely to be a safety car restart? That's definitely worth having a bit of a look at the rule book on that one, because I'm fairly sure standing start restarts are only in Formula 1 racing. I think it would be a safety car restart in Asian Formula 3, although don't quote me on that one. So we would have to have another look into that one. Now, Shrey Raj says, your take on the best driver of this grid. Thanks for the question. This is a very difficult one to quantify because you've got this interesting blend of Formula 2 drivers that are coming here to get more super license points and rising talents who are trying to put in a really exceptional performance. Obviously, we have to talk about Jehan Daruvala and Kush Maini. Kush Maini is certainly the most improved driver over the course of the season. You can't really take that one away from him, because at the start of the year, he was really struggling with the car. There were difficult moments, and I think there were some suggestions that perhaps there were 1 or 2 mistakes too many, but he has really rebuilt himself over the course of this season, and Kush Maini is definitely now one of the most improved drivers on the grid. You can argue till the cows come home that he hasn't had the results, but there are differing circumstances as to why that has happened. You know, he could have thrown his toys out of the pram in race 1, but he didn't. He got the car to got the team to fix the car, went out, banged in the fastest lap, got himself into pole position for race 2, handled himself very admirably considering he's not had any time at all leading an Asian Formula 3 race prior to yesterday's race 2. And these drivers really do have to sink or swim in these situations. So he's proved himself to be very, very admirable in these positions. So he's definitely the most improved driver. In terms of the raw talent, it's very difficult to take anything away from Zhou Guanyu or from Jehan Daruvala. They have plenty of decent experience, of course, and they've come in to get their season off to a flying start. But Pierre-Louis Chauvet has blasted out of the blocks and put in a fantastic effort. It's really good to see him doing such a valid job. So, as Tarush Awasti points out with Kush Maini, he says it wasn't down to a driver issue with Kush, it was an engine issue. That is also worth acknowledging. So, yes, a very valid point there, and very well made, actually. As for other drivers in the field that are worth mentioning. I'm always going to be a bit of a showboater to shout out Rhys Ushijima. Now, why do I pick him out in particular? Well, I'm always about pointing out drivers' abilities in terms of context. Yes, he's only in about 7th or 8th place, but let's not forget that most racing drivers start their career as a young child, aged 7 or 8 in the world of national karting, or even regional karting in their domestic motorsport scene. And Rhys Ushijima didn't start racing until he was 14, which is a good 6 or 7 years after most other drivers start racing. So the fact that he has crept up into the world of single-seater racing in Britain and been admirable, he's taken podium finishes in British Formula 3, and here he is in Asian Formula 3 and doing a fair job of it as well. You have to take that into context. He is there or abouts the same sort of pace as Roy Nizani, who is a Formula 2 driver. So not bad going at all from Rhys Ushijima. He really has been putting on a sensational effort this season. Good to see. And it's very hard to forget the talents of Chamberlain Bassey, the Turkish driver. He has been absolutely phenomenal. When you think that 4 years ago he was playing a video game and becoming the Formula 1 esports world champion, and now here he is fighting for the top 5 in races in Asian Formula 3. It really is absolutely exceptional. You cannot take away from the talent of that, and that is starting to give us a little bit of weight behind the argument. Can a gamer actually get into Formula 1? So it would be absolutely astonishing if he could do it, and he's certainly one of the better drivers. I always thought for a long time that Jan Mardenborough would get the chance to get into Formula 1 at some point. He was in GP3 as a young driver for Nissan, but then he decided to go down the Japanese Formula 3 and Super GT route, where he has built a career. So I always thought that was a missed opportunity for a gamer to get into Formula 1, but now Chamberlain Bassey genuinely has an opportunity here. He could hopefully get the rest of his Turkey and the city of Istanbul behind him, where they will hopefully see his efforts here. And who knows, we could see him in the FIA Formula 3 Championship. I would love, personally, to see Chamberlain Bassey build his way up to Formula 1. It would be amazing, wouldn't it? And a massive groundbreaking opportunity for a gamer to get into Formula 1. I think we all want to see that, just to see if it's possible more than anything else. Great to see your comments coming in as we're under red flags. I am told that the race is going to be restarted and it will run at 15 minutes in duration. That is great news. So we are going to get a 15-minute race, and that is exactly what we were hoping to hear. Ayandas Gupta points out, Isaac Hajar has impressed me the most. Do you know what? That's a really good point. Isaac Hajar had been fantastic in his opening 3 weekends, having last commentated on him in the FIA Karting World Championships back in 2018 when they raced absolutely sensationally for the title fight at Kristianstad in Sweden. Isaac really has matured and moulded into a brilliant racer, and I was devastated when I was told during the Yas Marina weekend that they didn't have the budget to finish the last 2 rounds of the championship, or so they didn't have it in the programme, if not the budget, to run the last 2 rounds of the championship, because I really thought Isaac Hajar had a great chance to win a race in Asian Formula 3. That would have been fantastic. Amin Mashra points out that Pierre-Louis Chauvet could be one of the youngest drivers to step into F1 if he continues to perform like this. He's certainly going about it the right way, isn't he? The Frenchman is putting on a sensational show at the moment, and there's every chance he could still bag one of the remaining seats in FIA Formula 3 if the Asian Formula 3 title goes his way, and it would be sensational to see what he could do. And as Lloyd Cazal points out, but Max Verstappen is still the youngest F1 driver on record. Indeed he is. And it's been amazing to watch his rise from the world of gearbox karting all the way up. And now here he is doing what he's doing in Formula 1. So this is an absolutely fantastic battle that we're going to get underway again. Hopefully it will be sensational when we get back underway again. But there is Kush Maini. It's been fantastic, actually, to keep the cameras trained on him during this red flag period, because I don't think we're actually getting any information on what's happening down in the race circuit in terms of clearing the way for the race to restart anyway. And it's nice to get this behind the scenes of what is actually happening. Now, this is always a difficult point when the drivers are ready to get going again. You've got to remember that at this point, the drivers are stressed. They're obviously trying to get themselves ready for a restart. And it's a big moment for the engineers at this point to just talk over with the drivers like, come on, let's focus on what we can do here. Let's focus on what we've got. You've got good speed. You've got good pace. You're in 5th position. We don't want to lose this mentality. Just keep the focus. Just keep it going. It's a very psychological battle that you've got under a red flag situation. The driver has to stay focused, has to stay motivated, but that adrenaline is still pumping. You know, you're in the car. You're in the middle of a race. You know where you are. It's a very difficult situation. So they do have to work very hard to keep their drivers in the right mindset. Melvin Lee asks, can we get an update on the driver's position at the moment? Yes, we can indeed. So Pierre-Louis Chauvet is currently leading, and when we restart for our 15 minutes, he will be leading the race. David Vidalis is in second position. Patrick Pasma in third place in the Evans GP, the man who won yesterday's second race. Roberto Faria in the Motorscape is in fourth place. Great driving so far from the Brazilian. Kush Maini runs in fifth position, just ahead of Roy Nizani in the high-tech Grand Prix car. You can see both of those cars on your screen at the moment. Reese Ushijima in seventh place in the high-tech. Guan Yu Zhou has actually worked his way up to eighth place. So a great comeback so far from the Chinese driver. He is there in P8 at the moment, and that's going to bring him back into the points. Roman Stanek is in ninth position now in the high-tech, and in 10th place is Alex Connor in the Evans GP car. Rafael Villagomez is 11th in the Black Arts. 12th is Nicola Maranangeli. 13th is Ayumu Uwasa, who has managed to get his way up the order into 13th place. Lorenzo Flusha is in 14th position. Then we have Irina Sidakova, the Russian, in P15. Khaled Al-Kubaisi is in 16th position. And courtesy of their pit stops, Chamberlain Bassey is 17th and Alessio Deleda is in 18th. Now, they were technically going to be a lap down, but obviously, because the race has been red flagged at a particular point and they were on the same racing lap, they will start from 17th and 18th. But as far as I'm aware, they will be on the same racing lap. So they won't actually go a lap down. They will be on the same racing lap. So that's a good opportunity then for Bolak-Bassey and Deleda to work their way back up the field. And they will have 15 minutes to get some overtaking moves in. Now you can see that there's nobody hanging around the cars at the moment, and that is because we are going to have a restart, and it is a safety car restart. So the cars are going to go around under one lap under the safety car. And this is going to be quite the thriller, because drivers are getting to that point in the season now where they've got to put on a show. They've got to showcase their talents and abilities. And it will be quite a difficult race now. So as the battles continue in the F3 Asian Championship, this is the penultimate race weekend. This is round 4 of 5. And this is the third and final race. As out onto the circuit, the drivers go. And there you can see Chamberlain Bassey rejoining at the end of the field, along with Alessio Deleda. So they will rejoin at the back of the field, but at least they get going again. And that's one of the Evans GP cars down at the back. That's Irina Sidakova. There's Khaled Al-Kubaisi behind. Fair play to Irina Sidakova. I don't think people really appreciate just how hard she's working in that particular car, because Irina Sidakova actually damaged her hand quite badly during round 3 at Yas Marina last week, when she ended up clattering into the accident that involved Casper Stevenson and Alessio Deleda. And she made impact with the cars in front, basically because she had absolutely nowhere to go. She couldn't slow the car down enough. They spun directly in front of her. And when the car actually made contact with Alessio Deleda's stationary vehicle, the steering wheel snapped out of her hand at a brutal 90-degree angle. And it basically twisted her wrist round. She got out of the car and her hand swelled up like a balloon. It was very nasty indeed. She had to miss the second and third races of round 3. But as a result, she's basically been spending the entirety of this last week trying to build her health back up again and working on making sure that she can be fit and ready in the car. And she's not at the back of the field, is she? She's doing as well as she possibly can under the situations. And she's one of the youngest drivers out there, Irina Sidakova. Don't forget that she only joined the W Series last year and couldn't actually race in the championship in 2020 because due to COVID-19, they weren't able to get W Series racing underway. They chose not to run. So she's had very limited time in the car. She's on a world stage. She's obviously in a very tough championship, which is not as aerodynamically aided as FIA Formula 3 Championship racing is. So this is a very tricky championship indeed. Melvin Lee asks a question that I really could go on and on and on about for days on end. I wonder who the best female drivers in the world are at the moment. Oh, I've got a list. I've got a very, very long list. And maybe in another forum at another time when we aren't about to go racing again, we could debate that forever and a day, because there are some amazingly talented female drivers out there. Vidalis again reacts well to Chauvet as he bolts the throttle. It's not quite as in your face as it was last time on the restart, but we've got a chance here of a great race because Vidalis has gone with Chauvet. If he nails the final corner this time, then Vidalis with a chance on Chauvet. Chauvet's got a couple of car lengths, but we are racing once again, and here we go. So Chauvet holding his run to the first corner. And Vidalis is actually having to play a little bit defensive to turn one because Pasma's trying to get through on the inside. But note under the red flags that we were not able to get tyre changes, so they are still running on the same tyres that they were on the original start. So this is all up to Chauvet now to try and stretch out a lead over Vidalis and Pasma. And I think he's got a good chance of it, but the wind is going to be still very strong here. You've got to be able to react to these difficulties in these situations. Chauvet, though, definitely has put on a sensational start to this race. So Chauvet, Vidalis, Pasma, Faria, Maini, Nizani, Ushijima, Zhou, Stanek and Connor. So the cars are cleared away, and we no longer have Daruvala or Bardino in the race. And obviously Amner Al-Kubaisi crashed out earlier on as well. But the race is on. This is going to be an interesting one as up towards the braking zone. Faria is getting close to Pasma, and further back we've got a little bit of a challenger. Zhou is trying to take on the high-tech of Reese Ushijima. And he's going to sell in the dummy. What a nice move there from Zhou. He tries to get him on the switchback. Ushijima holds it to the inside, but Zhou just drives right round the outside. Oh, sorry, that's not Ushijima he's got. That's Roy Nizani. So Zhou absolutely minces around the outside of Roy Nizani. That was a textbook overtaking. But oops! Trouble in paradise for the high-tech boys. You do not want to hit your teammate. And that got very close to fisticuffs there between Nizani and Ushijima. So Reese Ushijima had to go wide and drops behind Roy Nizani now. And Ushijima has to now dive for the inside line to protect against his other teammate, Roman Stanek. What's the one rule in motorsport? Don't drive into the side of your teammate. Don't take your teammate out. That's the first rule of motorsport. And here comes Ayumu Iwasa trying to get his move on the inside of the motorscape of Nicola Maninangeli and has not managed to. And that's Lorenzo Flusha taking full advantage of the Japanese plight. So now Flusha trying to roll off the turn. Flusha and Iwasa side by side down the main straight towards turn one. And I think Flusha has actually made the best move out of the final turn. So Lorenzo Flusha has got the move, and that's a big lunge up the inside on the 11 of Roman Stanek. And there's contact, I think, as Rafael Villagomez tries to get his move there. Oh, that was close. So Stanek had to let Villagomez through. That was very tight indeed. Now, we are told that there is an investigation going on between cars 13 and 14 on turn 12. Under investigation. That is Roy Nizani and Reese Ushijima. So they are going to investigate that incident by the look of it. So I would suspect that Roy Nizani may be going to the steward's office again at the end of this race. That's unfortunate for the Israeli driver. So now we're going to have a really exciting run. Chauvet, Vidalis, Pasma, Faria, Maini holding on well, and that's Guan Yu Zhou now in 6th position, so the Chinese driver absolutely relentless. And that's a very late move on the inside. Is there going to be an overtake from Marinangeli? He tries to get past Alex Connor. He drives around the outside, keeping the car's foot in side by side. Is he going to be able to finish the overtake? We need to look back and see if Marinangeli can finish the move on Connor. And I think he's just about made it stick, has he? No, Connor's got him back again. Good driving from Alex Connor. He's been based out in the United Arab Emirates for a fair while now, the British driver. Raced here in karts and has done a fantastic job to get up here into Formula 3. And that's Marinangeli trying to defend as Iwasa tries to drive around the outside. And Chamberlain Bassey is getting himself back into the hunt again. Watch Iwasa hold the car round the outside and plants it on the inside of the right-hander. Lovely move from Ayumu Iwasa, the Japanese driver, absolutely storming. And Chamberlain Bassey getting the move on the inside lined up as well. Is that going to work for Flusha? No, he has to bail out of the move on Marinangeli on the final turn. So down the main straight again. This midfield battle definitely spicing up. Bassey, Marinangeli and Flusha. And up to the first corner, that is Reese Ushijima getting very racy behind his teammate Roy Nizani as they battle over 7th place. Running out of time, but at least we're keeping it clean. So the battle is raging, but there is going to be an investigation, we're told, into the incident between Nizani and Ushijima on the first racing lap after safety car. So this is going to be a brilliant conclusion to this 3rd and final race of the weekend for the Asian Formula 3 Championship. I can't wait for the finale at Yas Marina. The drivers are really starting to get into the battle. And obviously, it's the business end of the season. You want to finish on a high and you want to bow out of the Asian Formula 3 Championship at your best. And racing drivers always say, whoops, that's Roy Nizani going very wide there. Far too wide off the circuit. And I don't think he was the only one. I think we also saw Nicola Maninangeli going wide there. As Maini just tries to test the resolve of Guan Yu Zhou. This is going to be a big launch on the inside from Ushijima. And there's not a lot of room. He's leaving Roy Nizani. Nizani gets on the curbs. Ushijima sorts him out. Well, there's no love lost between teammates in that stable. Ushijima absolutely storms around Nizani. And now we've got Rafael Villagomez trying to come around the outside of the Israeli. And Marinangeli, Villagomez has to take avoiding action. He gets back on the course behind Roy Nizani. So Nizani is going to try and hold this line as much as possible. Villagomez looks very heated and is trying to make his move on the outside now because Nizani is placing him there. But there is grip on that outside corner. Unfortunately, Villagomez tries to shut the door, but Roman Stanek is already there. He almost hit him as he came back across. I don't think he realised that Stanek was there to his left. So that could have been a very nasty accident between the two. Thank goodness they just missed each other. So 6 minutes remaining here in this third and final race of the 2021 Asian Formula 3 Championship Round 4 from the Dubai Autodrome on the Grand Prix circuit, the full length of the course. I think we've got about 3 laps to go. So this is the battle for 5th position. This is Kush Maini in front of Zhou Guanyu, or Guanyu Zhou, depending on which part of the world you're from. If you're Chinese, it's Zhou Guanyu. If you're anywhere else, it is, of course, Guanyu Zhou. So Chauvet leads by 1.8 seconds from Vidalis. Vidalis doing a solid job. Don't forget that this is David Vidalis' first weekend in the car in racing conditions, and he is in 2nd place. He's doing a fantastic job, the Spanish driver, very much having taken over from Dino Beganovic in the same car, in the same team. That was Dino's car earlier this year, and Vidalis has replaced him, but he's doing just as good a job as Dino Beganovic did. Really exciting to see how well he's done. Patrick Pasma, race 2 winner. They're in 3rd position. And then we've got these 3 battling. Zhou's going for a big lunge on the inside of Kush Maini. I don't know whether he finished that move or not, as Iwasa's trying to defend in his bid to keep Connor at bay. And up the inside comes Chamberlain Bassey to try and get his move on Alex Connor. But did Zhou get the move on Kush Maini? That's the big question. We were looking at the wrong car at the wrong time there, unfortunately. We've got this great midfield battle going on. But I didn't see whether Zhou was able to get past Kush Maini or not to move up into 5th position. I think he did. So I'm fairly sure that Guanyu Zhou did manage to get into 5th position past Kush Maini. But Iwasa is making his bid on Roman Stanek in the other high-tech. Round the outside. And a big challenge. Oh, he sold him, an absolute dummy! Beautiful racecraft from Iwasa, but he's not going to be able to hold it on the exit. Stanek has just got the better line off the turn. He's now going to have to defend from the Japanese driver down to the final corner. But Iwasa really is proving himself to have incredible skill in racecraft. He's properly daring his way into these overtakes. And there is the proof. There's Guanyu Zhou in 5th position now, chasing down Faria. Kush Maini still doing very well in P6. And that will be his best result of the season, I'm sure. Well, we've still got this little tussle between Nizani and now Villagomez. And I think Ushijima's cheeky move on his teammate was out of pure frustration. He wanted to get through, and he was not expecting to have to be held up by his own teammate. There's Alex Connor, the British driver, doing a great job. He's lost out to Iwasa and Bolok Bassey, but they are charging their way forward. The next car they're going to approach is Roman Stanek, the young driver from the Czech Republic. And you've got to see that this is a really unfortunate case of affairs for Ayumu Iwasa. If he had got a good start, he could be leading this race, no problem at all. And the Japanese driver certainly looking like he's had the pace to do it. Now, here we go. This is the squabble for Faria to try and keep Zhou at bay. Zhou's going to commit to the inside with barely any room to negotiate. And he sticks it on the inside. Lovely job. Excellent overtake from Zhou. This man knows no boundaries, no fear, and has absolute conviction. He knows when he can get these moves done. Now Kush Maini is going to try and get the move on Faria because the Brazilian is unsettled. This is the moment to try and make the move work, and Kush Maini is forced wide. So he comes up off the curbs and gets back in behind Faria. But he's got a good chance to get into the top 5. Is there going to be an opportunity? Into the braking zone. He's got to hope that Faria messes up the braking zone, which he does to a certain extent. He manages to get the car travelling through the apex at a decent enough rate to hold it. But Kush Maini definitely giving the Brazilian some pressure now. And the team principal at Motorscape, Sanad Shanak, is going to be very happy indeed to watch Roberto Faria in the top 5. He's been building up to this all season as we cross the line. I think we've got 2 laps to go. And Kush Maini has definitely got the slipstream there behind the Brazilian Roberto Faria as we watch David Vidalis in 2nd place, the Spanish talent, continuing his charge in second place ahead of Patrick Pasma, who really has evolved this weekend. He was a feisty driver beforehand. But here's the championship leader, Pierre-Louis Chauvet, with Zhou down in fourth and Daruvala out of the race. It's hard to argue against Pierre-Louis Chauvet putting a metaphorical one hand on the trophy in the Asian Formula 3 Championship with the lead he's going to build up heading to Yas Marina. He's going to really struggle to lose that lead the way he's been driving in 2021, and you have to give it to him. He has been absolutely exceptional. It's really good to see how Chauvet has worked. Look at Zhou in the background in fourth place as the crew continue there at Pinnacle Motorsport. That's Mummy and Daddy Chauvet. Mama and Papa very, very proud of their boy, and he is doing an exceptional job and proving himself to be an absolute talent. I can't wait to see this boy in FIA Formula 3 Championship racing because he could be the dark horse. We've already got a fair few up-and-coming rising stars in France in the world of Formula 2 and Formula 3. And this man could well be the next one. The likes of Théo Pourchaire, of course, is one of them. But this man could be right there as well. Pierre-Louis Chauvet. Many people might not have heard of him before the Asian Formula 3 Championship got underway. Everybody knows his name now because he's taking on the likes of Guan Yu Zhou and Jehan Daruvala and Roy Nizani, Formula 2 drivers, and he is beating them all. This is a brilliant chance for Pierre-Louis Chauvet to show to the world that he's ready to step up to the world stage. There's David Vidalis, a great opening weekend for the Spaniard, and we go into the last lap. And Pierre-Louis Chauvet has done what he does best. He's driven out in front of the field. Not bad at all. So an absolutely sensational run from the Frenchman. He's just got to keep it together for one more lap. And he really has been one of the stars of the season. He certainly nailed it around Dubai. He's got a lot more confidence here than he has had in the previous weekend 2 weeks ago, where he won the third and final race of the weekend. He's been able to extract the maximum from the Pinnacle Motorsport team. They took a while to get going, didn't they? It was only race 3 that they finally got their first win of the 2021 campaign. But ever since then, the team has barely looked back, and all the boys and girls at Pinnacle Motorsport have definitely reaped the rewards of putting their car up front. So it's been truly inspiring to watch Pierre-Louis Chauvet at work. Vidalis there in second, Pasma in third, Guan Yu Zhou doing a sensational job working his way up to fourth position from 14th at one stage to get himself back up into fourth. He really has put on a great show. If he hadn't had a poor start, he could well have done an absolutely fantastic job. Melvin Lee with a brilliant comment on YouTube. Chauvet reminds me of Prost. Quietly professional. Do you know what? That is not a bad comparison at all. And having watched Alain Prost when I was 7 years old on my television at home as a young schoolboy, I was always dazzled by the maturity, the resolve, and the absolute hardcore, no-holds-barred mentality of Alain Prost. This man, Pierre-Louis Chauvet, is a cut from the same French mould. And he's doing a great job out in front. So he comes through the final couple of corners, and it's very easy to see that Pierre-Louis Chauvet this weekend has hardly put a wheel wrong, and he has bagged himself 2 wins and a third-place finish as he comes out of the final turn, round behind the park-in Radisson Blu. A brilliant race victory, and it's Pierre-Louis Chauvet once more here in the Asian Formula 3 Championship. Absolutely sensational from the Frenchman, and he makes it 6 wins this season. Mama et Papa Chauvet are delighted. Formidable, mon brave. Pierre-Louis Chauvet, or PLC as he is quickly being known. Absolutely fantastic victory. Well done. Excellent drive from David Vidalis. Solid racing from Patrick Pasma. There is Mr. O'Hara himself. Great result from the Pinnacle Motorsport team. Once again, they are race winners. Guan Yu Zhou, a great comeback in 4th place. Good, solid drives in the top 6 from Roberto Faria and Kush Maini. They deserve their top 6 finishes. It's great to see them doing a brilliant, brilliant job under such massive pressure. And Kush Maini, I think that's his drive of the season. Yes, he led yesterday, but for Kush Maini, who was probably struggling to shake off a bit of a difficult reputation there, he has done a solid job in P6 to fight with top drivers in this championship and hold his own. Brilliant work. So let's go through the results provisionally, of course, as they are. Pierre-Louis Chauvet taking a brilliant victory in front of David Vidalis and Patrick Pasma in the top 3. It's a Frenchman, a Spaniard and a Finn on the podium in the in the Asian Formula 3 Championship. The Europeans really have come to storm the championship, and they've done a fine job of it. 4th place, Guan Yu Zhou. 5th for Roberto Faria. 6th place for Kush Maini. And then the final point scorers provisionally are Rhys Ushijima, Roy Nizani, Rafael Villagomez, and Ayumu Iwasa, who fought his way back to 10th position. 11th for Chamberlain Bassey, and then Roman Stanek in 12th position in front of Alex Connor and Lorenzo Flusha, and then Nicola Maranangeli in 15th from Alessia Daleda. Irina Sidakova and Khaled Al-Kubaisi, sadly retirements for Jehan Daruvala and Alexandra Bardino, as well as that very nasty-looking crash earlier for Amna Al-Kubaisi. Hopefully they're all going to be okay. But it's time to hand back to the commentary teams to wrap up here in Dubai.
Going as they were swamped by the field, but Pierre-Louis Chauvet, the championship leader, starting from position number 3, was then able to get himself up in front into turn 1 ahead of David Vidalis, going from 6th to 2nd, and Patrick Pasma up into 3rd. And that is how it finished. There was plenty of action throughout this race, all the way through this field, even if we didn't have too much change at the top. That was Kush Maini there, battling, and at this point he was in 6th position ahead of Chamberlain Bassey and his teammate Daruvala. At the top of the straight there, Amna Al-Kubaisi spun around and hit the wall with pretty significant damage, so that brought out the safety car, and we were back to racing. And the 28 car of Kush Maini was battling throughout. The 13 and 11 of Rhys Ushijima and Roman Stanek. And this brought out a red flag. Jehan Daruvala in the 19 car with Alexandra Bardino. Appears to be no hard feelings between those two, although we didn't see exactly what happened. But the cars were back to the pits for quite some time before we got back out for the second half of this race. And Pierre-Louis Chauvet paraded around 1 lap behind the safety car before, you'd have to say, coasting home for victory here with his 6th win of the season, and has a commanding lead at the top of this championship now with just 3 races to go. Still plenty happening behind him and behind the top 3, with Zhou Guanyu in particular and Ayumu Iwasa, those two from the front row of the grid, carving their way back through the field and both into the points. Zhou finishing all the way up in 4th position, so very impressive after his dreadful start. Ayumu Iwasa finishing eventually in 10th position. Roy Nizani battling there with Rafa Villagomez, and it was Nizani who managed to hold him off in this battle for 8th position. And this was Zhou Guanyu getting past Roberto Faria up into 4th place. And if he is able to put some wins under his belt in Yas Marina, just wonder if that is significant. Just trying to keep Chauvet in touch, even though the Frenchman has a pretty sizable lead. And here he is again, taking the checkered flag. His team celebrates. And
Yes, it's me. And no, it's not cricket. But it's the same energy. It's not between the runs, but the laps. It's not between 2 teams, but many to come. It's not just between the players, but also their machines. Sweat, not in the jerseys, but in their gears. It's about the race this time. Show up to cheer for Amchi Mumbai.
Mumbai Falcons at the Asian F3 Championship, UAE.